for the proceedings of this morning. My name is Reema Ghoshal, and I will be your host for the event today. We've grown up listening to this one statement that says, prevention is better than cure. And today we are gathered here to celebrate the announcement of the first indigenously developed quadrivalent human papillomavirus vaccine, one of India's greatest scientific achievements. Without further ado, I would like to invite the moderator for today's discussion, Dr. Alka Sharma. Dr. Sharma is a senior advisor at Department of Biotechnology and Managing Director of Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council, BIRAC. She deals with research and policy issues in emerging areas of medical biotechnology. Dr. Sharma has made significant contributions in medtech innovation with national and international partners, early and late translational research on stem cells, and regenerative medicine. Dr. Sharma has been instrumental in promoting and supporting public-private partnerships across the country for commercialization of indigenous and affordable technologies. She has also been at the NIH for managing of extramural research funding and has been lauded for the same, and has received multiple awards, including the CSIR Innovation Award for her work in the field of innovation. Please welcome Dr. Alka Sharma. May I now introduce you the panelists of this session. Dr. Neerja Bhatla. Dr. Bhatla is a professor in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. Dr. Bhatla has successfully undertaken numerous research projects in India on cervical cancer screening and is a member of several committees on cervical cancer prevention. Please welcome Dr. Neerja Bhatla. Dr. Guru Prasad R. Medigeshi. Dr. Medigeshi is a professor at Translational Health Science and Technology Institute, Faridabad. He has vast experience in viral diseases and his interest lies in vaccine and antiviral development. He is actively involved in epidemiological studies and circulating viruses. Dr. Devsena Anantharaman. Dr. Anantharaman is a scientist at Rajiv Gandhi Center for Biotechnology and is responsible for the implementation of the HPV-related projects. She has specialization in cancer molecular epidemiology and has been recognized as an expert in the field of oropharyngeal cancer by IARC and USNCI. Dr. Devsena Anantharaman. Dr. Umesh Shaligram. Dr. Shaligram is Executive Director and Board Member of Serum Institute of India Private Limited. He spearheads the scientific development of vaccines and next-generation biologics. Dr. Umesh Shaligram. Over to you, Dr. Alka.
Thank you. A very good morning to all of you. So now, as per the program, we are now starting panel discussion with our eminent panelists here for a scientific discussion on a very important topic, that is India's first indigenously developed quadrivalent HPV vaccine for cervical cancer. So following this panel discussion, our Honorable Minister, Dr. Jitendra Singh Ji, will announce this vaccine. So as we all are aware, vaccinations are quick, safe and efficient approach to shield people against infectious diseases. So with advances in biotechnology, the vaccination landscape has also progressed rapidly. So coming to the today's panel discussion, so as many of you are aware that globally, cervical cancer is the 4th most common cancer in women, and in India, it is the 2nd most frequent cancer among women between 15 and 44 years of age after breast cancer. So considering that HPV vaccination is the most effective primary preventive approach against the disease, Department of Biotechnology, Government of India implemented this project way back in 2011. Since that, then DBT is driving this project in a focused manner as a mission project with all the national and international stakeholders and industry, and that it was supported. Serum Institute of India was supported for development of quadrivalent human papillomavirus vaccine. So the focus of today's panel discussion is on understanding the scientific perspective of vaccine development, especially HPV vaccine research and development so far. And we start with a panel discussion with Dr. Neerja Bhatla, Additional Professor, AIIMS, New Delhi. And just to recap that journey of this vaccine, Dr. Neerja is actually engaged in this whole team effort right from the beginning. And I must say that from both sides, implementation as a team member of the developer, implementation, also from user side. So she is a key person in this whole journey of vaccine development. So Dr. Neerja, actually, as you know that cervical cancer, as I said, that's the most common cancer worldwide, and 90% of the new cases and death occur in low and middle income countries. So what is your take on development of this India's first indigenously developed vaccine, and what are the safety concerns involved in this vaccine?
Thank you, Dr. Alka, for that question and for summarizing also the scenario of cervical cancer. Yes, it has been a long journey, and to start with, there was a time, in fact, when cervical cancer was the #1 cancer among women in India, and today it is #2 because it is overtaken by breast cancer. But it is still one of the very important causes and a very preventable cause, and in fact, as you mentioned, it is a cancer which affects younger women. So it affects women in the prime of their lives when they still have very important duties towards their families, towards their societies, and affecting by this cancer affects not just the woman herself, but entire families. And it is really sad because of being one of the most preventable cancers. So we have been seeing over the years a slight decline in the prevalence of this cancer. And that may be related to various epidemiological factors like increasing the age of marriage or in decreasing the number of children, which are known contributors. But the important thing is that it also has a whole precancerous phase. Now, precancerous phase, on the one hand, has been an advantage because there is a screening that is possible for these precancers and treatment, and you can impact cervical cancer incidence, and that's what the developed countries have done. So the problem is that even the treatment of the precancers has its own consequences on their future fertility, on their psychosocial and other things. So the best part of the vaccine is that it will not only prevent the cancers, but it will prevent a whole lot of precancers as well, which we can see have a problem with that. And the other issue with the vaccine advantage is that in our country particularly, the message of vaccine is very well taken. They are very well received. So with screening, it is a multiple visits, multiple treatment options, follow-up for 20 years, and so many issues that remain. And we are struggling to implement the national program because it involves a lot of training, retraining, and resources. So if we have a combined approach of vaccination to the young girls and screening them when they get older, we will be able to have a comprehensive control of this disease. The WHO has launched a global initiative for cervical cancer elimination, which means to bring down its rates significantly to less than 4 per 100,000 women years, and having this dual method. So why did we have a problem? We had a problem because it was expensive and not affordable even by the Gavi rates, which it was still unaffordable. So we have been waiting for this indigenous one, which will be a very affordable vaccine and which will be able to be available to all women, even throughout the country. Regarding its safety, which has been always a concern, any vaccine, safety is the #1 issue because they are not sick people who are ready to take a risk for treatment. They are healthy people and they do not want to take even the slightest risk. So the good news is that despite people's concerns, and in fact maybe because of people's concerns, even more closer look at safety, we can be assured that it is a very safe vaccine. We have personally participated in the trial. We have seen these girls and boys firsthand who received this vaccine. And apart from the usual side effects of pain at injection sites or maybe sometimes mild fevers, there has been no significant problem. And in fact, when the vaccines first came, CDC had said it is as safe as a tetanus toxoid.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Nirja, for covering whole perspective of this vaccine, including safety issues. So the message is very clear to the audience regarding this vaccine. So coming to the next panelist, Dr. Umesh Shaligram. So Dr. Umesh, you are also actually in this journey for a long time now, and as I mentioned that a project was implemented in 2011 by our then Secretary, late Professor M.K. Mahan. And now it has taken more than 10 years to reach to this stage. So now actually this, we would like to know from you that how, in what way Serum vaccine, this vaccine which we are now announcing today via Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Minister, sorry, for from the existing vaccines so far. So how do you see actually how this vaccine is going to be beneficial for the country, and how do you compare this vaccine with the existing vaccines in this area?
Thank you very much, Ilka, for good questions, and then thank you for making me part of this panel discussion. So basically, this globally, when you develop a vaccine, first you try to see what's going to be an impact, and certainly while selecting at that time, and also you have to see a global IP landscape. So based on both the challenges, what we realized in Indian data analysis, and after discussion with Dr. Nirja, as well as subsequent discussions with WHO, IARC, and a lot of Indian people who are involved into a field of cervical cancer, we realized the most cancer-causing serotypes in HPV 16 and 18. So obviously that is must. It's almost, it causes 85% of the cancer is because of 16-18. We also realized that genital warts is also a really big challenge, and in a global landscape, that a lot of people who were in development at that time had only bivalent in development vaccine, which is 16-18, which is cervical cancer causing serotypes of HPV. But then we went ahead and made a quadrivalent. There's already one vaccine which is quadrivalent vaccine, which is already manufactured by Merck in the US. So we went ahead and did a comparative clinical trial, actually non-inferiority clinical trial, which is already evaluated and thoroughly by experts. So selection was based on an impact, IP analysis, and also the idea is to really see how important this vaccine will be, and availability of vaccine is also key. And Serum is well known as a cost-effective, large-scale manufacturer of any vaccine, which is we are known for. And that's why we decided to take this project, as India would need a huge amount of a vaccine, and so developing world. So that was an idea of, going ahead into a development and having this more impacting vaccine quickly made available for the people of our country.
So thank you, Dr. Umesh, for bringing out clearly the perspective of this indigenously developed vaccine. Now going to the next panel, Dr. Guru Prasad, and he is from THSTI Faridabad. And as we are discussing, Dr. Guru Prasad, that we all know that vaccine development is a long journey, and being a scientist from academia and working closely with industry. So in your view, what do you think that about scientific challenges faced during research and development journey of this vaccine? And also discuss how India might strengthen its position as a major global vaccine developer by overcoming these challenges?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for DBT to inviting me to be a panelist here. I think the need for infrastructure was tested in the last maybe couple of years. This COVID-19 pandemic has taught us how important it is to have infrastructures in place to really fight any disease, whether it's a communicable disease or a non-communicable disease. So I would say that the interaction between the industry and academic institutions probably were cemented in the last 2-3 years, and the bonding is much stronger now than how it was earlier. I think Dr. Umesh's team visited THSTI a couple of days ago, and we are in touch with Biologically and Indian Immunologicals and other vaccine companies of India. So they all know now that working with academia probably is going to benefit both in the short term and long term. So in terms of infrastructure, and also as a fundamental researcher, and I believe our secretary has been a strong advocate of fundamental research, I would believe our investment in fundamental research is going to also yield dividends. So now there is no dearth of infrastructure. So if we can actually now demonstrate that what we learned from COVID can be demonstrated, that was a proof of concept, and now HPV vaccine will actually show that we can deliver and we can take the lead in terms of how vaccine implementation and efficacy studies can be conducted. So we all heard from Dr. Batla's statement that screening and vaccine implementation has to go hand in hand. So I think it's time now for us to actually put an ecosystem in place where we have hospitals and perhaps good laboratories which are implementing global standards to work hand in hand and see that this vaccine becomes one of the success stories of India. Because if we really have to see the fruits of this vaccine, it probably will take another 10 years for us to know the efficacy of the vaccine. So considering the amount of time involved, so the investment started somewhere in 2009-10, and today we are seeing the light of the day. To really understand how good this vaccine is and how it has actually transformed the society and the lives of women, we need to stay invested for another 10-15 years in a mission mode and strengthen the fundamental research and the vaccine research and understand the circulating viruses, how the HPV, other types are evolving in the background of vaccine implementation. Can we enhance screening? Can we understand cross protection? Can we understand herd immunity? All these are academic research programs. So I would like DBT and other funding agencies to really think in this direction and make the best use of this vaccine as a platform to demonstrate to the world that India can be a leader in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Guru Prasad. So now Dr. Guru Prasad is here, and he is actually in this organization where an ecosystem has been created long back to promote and support for vaccine development and as well as other research and development. So he is the person who is driving there for many infectious disease program, including this. So he is the right person to share his views here. So going now ahead with this, now we have the panel with us, Dr. Devasana. And so Dr. Devasana, I'm going to have a little bit different question with you because now vaccine has been developed by 3 panelists here. So in order to cover this whole perspective of any infectious disease, so the early diagnosis is as important as the prevention also, that's important, but early diagnosis of any infectious disease actually can help a lot to cure disease. So, so I would like to know from you that your views on how this investments in HPV diagnosis would be important in the fight against cervical cancer. So what exactly is available globally, and what efforts are being made in our country to deal with this issue? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Alka, for inviting me here and all the panelists to share this stage with you. I think I will start with where Dr. Bhatla ended in talking about the WHO mission on cervical cancer, cervical cancer elimination by 2030. So that really builds on 3 key strategies. The first being vaccination, the second being screening, and the third is the management of precursor lesions and cervical cancer. And as you can understand, for each of these 3 strategies to be effective, monitoring is key. So HPV testing is really one of those monitoring tools that we have to see how effective each of these stages are. So in terms of HPV management, for example, in treatment decision making for preneoplastic lesions, we now have validated tests that are FDA approved. And I'm sitting here with someone who employs these tests when she sees her patients. So this is widely accepted. It's been used in practice. And we've come a long way from the time of the discovery of the virus as a cancer-causing agent. But in terms of screening and surveillance of cancer, we're a little bit behind. So if you look at the repertoire of tests that are available, you see that there are over maybe 250 tests that are commercially available that look at different aspects of the infection in terms of surveillance. So surveillance for vaccinated populations, surveillance for prevalence of infection rates in the populations, different of each of these endpoints. And maybe even in cancers where we have multiple HPVs and we're trying to identify which one is the one that's driven the disease. So for each of these, we have multiple commercial tests, but most of these commercial tests are not validated. So if we say we have about 250 commercial tests, we have a whole range of hybrids of them that are also available, nearly twice as many. So now the next step forward would be to validate these tests. And when we validate these tests, keeping in mind the requirement and the recommendation of the WHO in terms of developing what they call accurate tests, tests that are cost-effective, not only cost-effective and accurate, but also easy to implement in population scales. They're logistically easy to employ. They don't require a great deal of technical expertise and training and competence. So developing tests and validating tests so that they can be employed to low, medium resource settings is really the key, I think, moving forward. And as Dr. Guruprasad has said, this vaccination is really a boon in terms of prevention. So that means we're going to now control majority of the cancers that are driven by HPV and 16. The vaccine is 100% efficacious. We already know that. And so that means that the types that we are going to see in the population that are cancer associated would be types other than 16 and 18. So most of the tests, again, that we have are tailored to looking for 16. So how is the test performance in the absence of these key genotypes will be the next important question that we have, and to maybe tweak the assays that we have to be able to address that. And then moving forward in terms of surveillance programs, especially as time goes on and the vaccine uptake, we hope, will be very effective, we will start seeing a decreasing rate of infections in the population. And when that happens, as time goes by with cohorts and cohorts being vaccinated, the antibody levels that we will see in the population will start to dwindle from the time of vaccination. So what kind of tests do we have at that point to monitor risks, whether they are individual or their population level? So do we have tools for immunosurveillance in the population, for example? Do we have high throughput sensitive tests that will look at which types of HPV will be associated with cancer risks in these populations? Those are the questions that we're dealing with. So essentially, I think that we know that HPV-16 has certain key features in that it tends to persist more than other high-risk types. But across the other most common 8 high-risk types, the rates of persistence are pretty similar. So once they persist, what is their level of oncogenicity, pathogenicity, and what kind of opportunities lie on that path for us for early diagnosis is the direction I think we should be focusing on moving forward.
Thank you so much. And this is very, very important aspect of this vaccine when we are discussing this, the whole perspective of HPV vaccine. So again, I would like to go to Dr. Neerja. So keeping in view your vast experience in now clinical field, and we all know that your engagement in this particular vaccine right from the beginning. So what do you think now that scientific evidence-based path ahead to convey right kind of message to the end users? Because you are from both the sides, you are now in the team of developers also and also at the implementation and user side. So what do you think there should be the now path ahead where scientific-based message should go to the users?
So I think, yes, the science is quite clear from a lot of, the first vaccines came in 2006. So we have seen globally a lot of countries taking it up. It's in about 130 countries now. So number-wise, there are a lot of countries, but burden-wise, because we are one of the largest contributors to about 1/5 of the problem, so the burden impact may not be there. But yes, we have the evidence from a lot of countries, from a wide variety of socio-economic, wide variety of cultural backgrounds as to how they respond. I mean, how the people respond to this introduction. So definitely one thing which we have observed in our own experience is that, as I also mentioned earlier, that vaccines are taken very well. But it is the people who had problems with taking the regular EPI vaccines who are the ones who are mostly the ones who say, why should we take a vaccine at all? But amongst those, the uptake is very good. We have some preliminary experience from Sikkim, which has done a statewide implementation. We have some experience from Punjab, which had tried it in 2 districts. We have experience from the neighboring country of Bhutan, where this has been implemented. And we find some 95 to 96% coverage, which is quite an amazing coverage, which is beyond the coverage of an EPI. So I think this is the time now for the advocacy and implementation research people to come into this. They are the ones who need to see and tailor the messaging so that people understand the importance of taking this vaccine, because there are many questions that come because of this HPV's role as a virus which comes at a very much earlier time, and we are giving the vaccine even earlier than that to adolescent girls. So sometimes parents can't understand, why should my little child take this when she's not going to get this cancer till much later. So to understand the pathogenesis, to understand why this needs to be done at a younger age, and in any case we also see that, like with all vaccines, the response is far higher when given to the younger person. And unlike the COVID vaccine, which has required repeated boosters, here is a scenario where we started with a 3-dose vaccine. We found, and largely that research was driven from India as well as from some other countries where the trials were, that 2 doses were enough for the younger girls. Now that 2-dose also has been extended from 15 years to 20-year limit, up to 20 years only 2-dose, and now we are in the era of looking at single dose. Does a single dose work? So likely we are not in a scenario where the booster will be required. Likely we can give these vaccines to the young girl and just follow it up with screening for those types which were not covered in the vaccine, for those conditions where some people may not have the same immune response what other people have. So a vaccine cum screening strategy to that extent, and to minimize, I would say, any anti-vax fears that this will cause infertility, this will cause promiscuity, this will cause some other kind of problems to develop. And also because so far we have been pushing this more for the girls. Why have we been pushing this more for the girls? Because of the scarcity of vaccine supply. So all the modeling and everything suggested, give it to the girls because they are the ones who suffer the cervical cancer. But it is actually much better if eventually, once we have enough vaccine, that we give it to both boys and girls. Why is that good? Because even the boys are at risk of certain cancers which are caused by HPV, although those cancers are lesser in numbers. And then again, what we call the attributable fraction. In cervical cancer, nearly 100% are caused by HPV, whereas in other cancers, this ranges from 40, 60, 80%. So that is why the focus today is cervical cancer. But tomorrow, once cervical cancer is under control, we will definitely want to look at the other things. And once you give it to boys and girls, you get a better herd immunity, as well as you do away with all these kind of concerns about why are only girls being given this vaccine. So I think the goal eventually is to catch them young and give it across the spectrum.
This is very important. The right kind of message should go to the community. So basically this is very helpful. And then, so now Dr. Guru Prasad, so now we would like to hear from you that how this research and development path can now be reduced further, keeping in view the ecosystem has been created, because when it was started 10 years back, there was hardly any ecosystem to support and promote. So it has been done, and now it has been created by DBT and BIRAC along with all stakeholders. So how do you see that, how this, basically the path of research and development path for development of vaccine can be reduced further?
Yeah, thanks for the question, ma'am. So I would say that we have now learned to work in a concerted manner. So I will just take the discussion that Dr. Devsena was making. So now is an opportunity for us to understand how do we generate evidence that this vaccine is, of course, absolutely no issues with the safety at all. How can we now support this vaccine's implementation by generating immunogenicity data, by understanding circulating viruses in the background of vaccine implementation? How do we now look at incidence and prevalence in the population after we have implemented this vaccine? So for this, of course, we need validated assays, we need harmonized protocols, which I would say 10 years ago was a big challenge. So our rotavirus vaccine taught us how we can actually perform assays in India, what is the infrastructure needed for those assays. But today, we are one of the 9 network labs working with CEPI for COVID-19 vaccine development. And I'll be very proud to say that we are one of the best labs in this, out of these 9 labs in the world. So there is no way we need to worry about whether we will be able to, support this vaccine implementation. What we need is to really support the existing infrastructure. For example, everybody appreciates what RGCB has done in this vaccine implementation program by establishing a lab. So now can we take this further and say we have global network of HPV labs in India which generate data and which provide evidence that can be unquestionable in terms of quality control, in terms of validity of assays, in terms of protocols across labs in India. So perhaps maybe 4 labs to start with, which actually become HPV labs and which support this implementation program. I think there's a lot of hand-holding required between the agencies. I'm sure Madam would agree that we need support of social scientists, we need support of academic labs and clinicians, in addition to, of course, the manufacturers. So I think all 4 components have to come together and make this a success story. In terms of infrastructure, I have absolute faith that we can deliver whatever is required, because we now have in-house assays for many viruses at THSTI, and also other DBT labs are working very hard to have global standards in their laboratories. So establishing assays, supporting vaccine programs is actually now our forte, and we can definitely support this vaccine implementation.
Thank you, Dr. Guru Prasad. So right message is there that now ecosystem has been created by DBT and BIRAC with other stakeholders, national, international partners. So now we are geared up with this to take this further with reduced timeline. So now going to Dr. Umesh. So now this vaccine has been developed by Serum. So what do you see that through this vaccine development, then this is our actually the government efforts to become Atmanirbhar. So how do you see that with this development of this vaccine, that how to India can become Atmanirbhar at least for this HPV vaccine? So how do you see, and what kind of statistics do you see as comparison to the global statistics, and how this can be implemented further?
Yes. Certainly, I think in terms of Atmanirbhar India, COVID is already proven story. Actually, Rota is proven story. So it's really great to see. It's very extremely it's a proud moment to...
Just 2 minutes. So welcome to Mr. Adhar C. Poonawala. So he is with us. Namaskar. Thank you for joining us. So we are having panel discussion before the announcement of indigenously developed HPV vaccine. So our panelists are on the dais, so you can see here. So please, Dr. Umesh, go ahead.
Yeah. So certainly it is I think in terms of the implementation and in terms of the vaccination, it's already proven stories exist. So I'm sure given the success of COVID-19, what government of India has done, actually, the implementation of HPV vaccine will be really a wonderful impact-making story. And as Dr. Nirja Bhatla has suggested, that with the WHO goal, if we are able to even, due to availability of vaccine, we can cover the boys also. Because primary idea was to only give the girls because vaccine availability was the issue. So due to availability, boys gets covered. If we are able to have better herd immunity and able to reduce the disease burden, which is what we are also focused on to, will be really wonderful. And now having an ecosystem in place, which we will be able to do an impact assessment by doing a larger throughout the India, including boys and girls, early age vaccination would be a really big impact making story, and that will substantially fast track in reducing these cervical cancer, but not only cervical cancer, but other cancers also, HPV caused cancers. And also very important thing which a lot of time we all miss in a whole story was genital warts, because 6 and 11 also is a very important thing, because the genital warts incidents are also pretty heavy in India, pretty heavy in developing world countries, which is missed by this. That's why quadrivalent vaccine is more important than the bivalent vaccine actually. So put together, I foresee it's a very good and a proud moment for all of us being Indian. And if we do an implementation, which is like a real global implementation, don't focus only on the girls, start focusing on girls and boys due to the availability of vaccine, it will be a big impact making story, certainly. And we may, due to that, I think, as Dr. Nirja Bhatla said, WHO's goal is to reduce the incidence. But due to this implementation itself, we may able to see a further reduction in cancer causing. So statistics wise, we will be able to probably even go way lower than what WHO expectation is there. So that will be really good actually. So that's what is a big plus, and it's being a ecosystem is really activated and is really coordinatedly working. So it will be a really wonderful story to have an impact, as well as to see an assessment of an impact by doing a wonderful implementation across India.
Thank you, Dr. Umesh. So now going back to Dr. Devasana. So you are from Research Institute, and we have now achieved, you all can see that today we are assembled here for this announcement of India's first indigenously produced affordable vaccine. So actually we would like to know that from you, that in entire pipeline, end-to-end process, what do you see as a missing gap, and how to address that gap? It's not that everything is perfect all the time, so there is something gap that we need to address as a scientific community. We have to see that also and to improve upon further.
Thank you for that question. That's a big question. I think that, the first point that I would like to make about this missing gap is in terms of public-private partnerships, and the strengths that they hold. I think this vaccine is a great example of that, where we've had several of our academic organizations that are traditionally involved in, top-down kind of government-funded individual research, to something that is more public health, public policy informing kind of data generation that's been taken up. And I think this marriage is very unique because it provides a lot of opportunities, because oftentimes the kind of requirements that we have in the academic settings and the requirements that we have in private settings are very different. So to be able to go across the board and meet them is a huge learning on both ends, in terms of sharing the research temperament and the open questions and the awareness of what lies beyond beyond a product for the private sector. And for the public sector, I think just being able to appreciate the process, the rigorousness of the process, the QC, the kind of documentations that are required, they're all very important learnings, I think. And like Dr. Nirja has said, and like Dr. Umesh has said, and all the panelists here have talked about, I think one thing that research really brings out to this forum is what beyond cervical cancer? And that's a very important question when we're talking about gender-neutral vaccination, and especially at this time when we are saying, let's treat our girls and our boys equally, so both of them get the vaccination. And of course, we have herd immunity, but they're also protected against minor cancer, not really minor in terms of absolute burden, but in terms of proportion, smaller rates of cancer, say, for example, oropharyngeal and tonsillar cancers and cancers of the male reproductive system, for example. So these are all things that we get as an extra bang for the buck, so to speak. And to be able to assess those kind of benefits from vaccination is something that can be done very well in academic settings, in public systems, because we have ICMR-based cancer registry. We know when vaccination is going to take off. We know which geographical area, what kind of uptake has happened. So to be able to do these kind of studies, to be able to provide evidence on what do we get beyond the anticipated impact on cancer reduction is a very important question. And I think one thing that from my time at the WHO and my time now here in a DBT institute in India is something that I've been very fascinated about is the structure in which research decision policies are made. To be able to have a high-level expert committee to identify gaps that will inform public policy and have focused research calls to fill in those kind of research gaps. I think that's something that's a model that we should very seriously start looking into in our own country. And this other point about getting more than what we anticipate from the vaccine is the point that Dr. Guruprasad touched upon in cross protection. So we are aiming to have protection, like Dr. Umesh said, for HPV 6 and 11 in cervical warts, and HPV 16 and 18 in cervical cancer and allied other cancers. But there is also some level of cross protection, and there is a strong biological basis for this. So the research behind trying to understand what that base is immunologically, and whether it is only an artifact of raised antibody levels or are they functionally relevant. Will we see cross protection at the immunological level? Will we see reduction in infection rates for types that are similar to HPV 16? We're starting to accrue data across ongoing studies in each of these parameters, and I think those will be very important in shaping the way to say how much are we really going to gain from successful implementation of the HPV vaccination program.
Thank you very much for highlighting the important issues. So we all have to know that what are the main key components when we are going ahead with any development. So now we have 8 more minutes with us as a panel discussion. So maybe the last message, what you like to give to this audience. So we would like to hear from each one of you, maybe more than 1 minute, so that each one of you, Dr. Nirja, we'll start with you.
So just listening to all my fellow panelists and some things which I think we can still talk about. One concern that people have is that we know that there are at least 13 or 14 high-risk HPV types, and why have we selected just the 16 and 18 for this vaccine? So of course one can go beyond to more and more types, but the reassuring news is that in India we have a very high proportion of these types in our cervical cancers. It is actually over 80% which are just caused by these 2 types alone, which is significantly more than the global average of 70%. So that leads us to believe that what we have been seeing as HPV prevention and cervical cancer prevention impact from just globally, where other countries where they have implemented, we are going to see an even better reduction. And Dr. Devasena mentioned about the cross protection. So there are linked types. They are like phylogenetic route. So 31 and 33 goes with 16, 45 goes with 18. So as a result of giving these two, it has been seen. In fact, this came out in the first trials when they found that the efficiency was more than expected and realized that there was cross-protection playing. But yes, we don't know how long that will last, how it will go, and follow-up research, monitoring, surveillance is going to be key. But as of now, I will just say that these vaccines are safe, they are effective. We truly will have to wait for much longer to see the cancer reduction. But we have reassuring news already from Nordic countries, from UK, that the cancer reductions came even faster than expected, even though these cancers are slow-growing cancers. And because we have precancers, we have a way to know by prevention of precancers and even by prevention of the persistent infection itself. So it's good news that we have a reliable vaccine, we have safe vaccine, and we are going to have it affordable and widely available. And it is now for each one of us to spread this message that we have solutions for a very deadly disease. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Nirja, for giving clear message to the audience, and it will percolate further. So now to Dr. Guru Prasad.
I think in addition to the gain we make as a country, I see this as a big research opportunity as a fundamental researcher, because now we can understand the longevity of immune response in the Indian context. We can understand herd immunity in the Indian context. We can look at how co-infections, for example, how is the vaccine efficacy in HIV, TB, this kind of background we have in the population. And also, we can also think of therapeutic vaccination. I think these are too early days, but I think trials have already started in other countries. So if somebody has a pre-exposure with one type of HPV, does this quadrivalent vaccine still be good to protect against other types? So that's again another opportunity which needs to be explored. I think we need to now tie up research with vaccine implementation so that the next 10 years we can make big gains, both in terms of deriving reduction in cervical cancers and also enhancing our understanding about HPV.
Very important. So now going to Dr. Umesh.
I think what Dr. Nirja Bhatla has said is just perfect, and already Garg has said all these things. And I think what COVID has taught us is a unique opportunity that how we can actually do a very nice implementation using electronic systems. So if we do this implementation all across India with a proper track and trace module, then we'll be able to achieve a huge impact actually. And that will be a purely game changer. So we'll set another example after COVID of complete elimination goal of cervical cancer or genital warts or any HPV causing cancer. So that is something which we all should put together and activate and ignite that ecosystem, which will really work out very nicely. So hope for the best with this.
Surely. Dr. Devasan.
So I think we are at a very interesting time in that we now have a cost-effective vaccine that is ready to be rolled out into our population. It's a great moment, I think, for all of us. And I would like to say that it's also time for the diagnostics counterpart in being able to assess the efficacy of implementation and the tests for these to come up on par quickly into the market through commercially available validated kits. And these don't necessarily, this debate is definitely required on whether all the kits need to be FDA approved or can we marry the criteria that is required to have our own means of licensing so that these kits become more cost effective, more affordable, and more easy to implement. So can we have lateral flow systems that can support self-testing to see what the infection rates are? Can we apply this in large epidemiological population-based studies? I think those are the important questions in being able to get quick results on the efficacy of this vaccination.
Thank you so much. So now it's time to close the panel discussion now. So on behalf of Department of Biotechnology and BIRAC, and also on behalf of the audience, a big thank you to each of the panelists here for bringing out the scientific perspective of development of vaccine, especially HPV vaccine. So with this, we close this panel discussion, and thank you very much for participating, devoting your time to this special and very important event.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alka, for paving the way for cervical cancer elimination, moderating this panel. Thank you so much. May I please request my team to present a token of appreciation to this fantastic panel. Dr. Neerja Bhatla, Dr. Guruprasad R. Medigeshi, Dr. Neerja Bhatla, Dr. Guruprasad R. Medigeshi, Dr. Devasana Anantharaman, Dr. Ramesh Shaligram, thank you so much. And may I now invite Dr. Mukherjee to present a memento to Dr. Alka Sharma. Please welcome Mr. Adar Poonawala. We also have with us Dr. Rajesh S. Gokhale, Secretary, Department of Biotechnology. Thank you so much. That was such a fascinating conversation. It's lovely to see how things are developing, how, these discussions, it's very important to have. Sorry. It's so important to have these discussions. And thank you to all the panelists for bringing these interesting conversations and sharing those with us today. We will move on to the next segment shortly. Thank you so much. May I request everyone to be seated? The Honorable Minister will be joining us shortly. Thank you. Honorable Minister Sir has arrived and is joining us here today. please welcome Dr. Jitendra Singh, Honorable Minister of State, Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Earth Sciences, Minister of State, PMO, Department of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions, Department of Atomic Energy, and Department of Space. Please welcome Honorable Minister of State, Dr. Jitendra Singh. May I request Honorable Minister to join us on the dais and the panelists for the next segment. Please welcome Dr. N. Kalai Selvi, Director General CSIR and Secretary DSIR, Dr. Rajesh S. Gokhale, Secretary, Department of Biotechnology, Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India, Dr. Alka Sharma, Senior Advisor, Department of Biotechnology and Managing Director of BIRAC, Mr. Adar Poonawala, CEO, Serum Institute of India, and Dr. Shashendu Mukherjee, Mission Director, Grand Challenges India and in charge Mission COVID Suraksha, BIRAC. Thank you all for joining us today, and I would request the team to felicitate our panelists. I would now request Dr. Rajesh Gokhale, Secretary, Department of Biotechnology, Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India, to welcome Honorable Minister of State, Dr. Jitendra Singh, Ministry of Science and Technology. Thank you. I would now request Dr. Alka Sharma, Senior Advisor, Department of Biotechnology and Managing Director, BIRAC, to welcome Dr. N. Kalai Selvi, Director General, CSIR and Secretary, DSIR, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. Thank you so much. Requesting Dr. Shashendu Mukherjee, Mission Director, Grand Challenges India and in charge Mission COVID Suraksha, to welcome Dr. Rajesh Gokhale, Secretary, Department of Biotechnology. May I now invite Dr. Chandra Madhavi to welcome Mr. Adar Poonawala, CEO, Serum Institute of India. Requesting Dr. Richa Vashisht to welcome Dr. Alka Sharma. And finally, requesting Dr. Arshi Mehboob to welcome Dr. Shashendu Mukherjee. Thank you so much. May I now invite Dr. Alka Sharma, Senior Advisor, Department of Biotechnology and Managing Director, BIRAC, for the welcoming remarks and set the stage for today's event. Over to you, Dr. Alka.
Thank you very much. Namaskar and good morning, everyone. On behalf of Department of Biotechnology and BIRAC, I welcome respected Dr. Jitendra Singh Ji, Minister of State, Independent Charge, Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Earth Sciences, Minister of State, Prime Minister's Office, Minister of State, Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pension, Minister of State, Department of Atomic Energy and Department of Space, Government of India. I also welcome Secretary, Department of Biotechnology and Chairperson BIRAC, Dr. Rajesh S. Gokhale, DG CSIR and Secretary DSIR, Dr. N. Kalai Selvi, ma'am, CEO of Serum Institute of India, Mr. Adhar C. Poonawala, panelist of today's panel discussion which we had today morning, representatives from academia, biotechnology industries, my colleagues from DBT and BIRAC, and all the participants who all have joined today with us for today's event for announcement of India's first indigenously developed quadrivalent human papillomavirus, that is HPV vaccine by our Honorable Minister. As you all know, Department of Biotechnology is making continuous efforts to strengthen the Indian vaccine research and development ecosystem over the past more than 3 decades now through its various schemes and mission programs such as Indo-US Vaccine Action Program, National Biopharma Mission, INSEPI Mission, Grand Challenges India, and also Mission COVID Suraksha, which was launched as a part of Atmanirbhar Bharat 3.0 package. The department has adopted pioneer strategies such as forging partnership with relevant global leaders and creating innovative funding mechanisms that have been indispensable to the advancement of vaccine science. Cervical cancer ranks, as many of you know, as the second most prevalent cancers in India and accounts for nearly 1/4 of the world cervical cancer death, despite being largely preventable. So realizing the unmet need for development of indigenous affordable HPV vaccine for our country, DBT implemented the project way back in 2011 under the guidance of the then Secretary, late Professor M.K. Bhan, in a mission mode program. So this was implemented in September 2011, and it took more than a decade to reach to the stage where we are assembled here for announcement of this vaccine. Since then, about 30 meetings of scientific advisory groups and also including site visits have been conducted by DBT and later on by BIRAC with industry to review the scientific merit of this whole journey, and then based on the milestones which are approved from time to time to develop this vaccine. So DBT has supported the entire scientific journey of this vaccine along with BIRAC and also in partnership with national and international stakeholders. So now India's first quadrivalent human papillomavirus vaccine has been developed indigenously to prevent cervical cancer with the support from Department of Biotechnology in collaboration with BMGF through partnership program under Grand Challenges India. And as you know, that vaccine has received market authorization approval from DCGI this year in July. And today morning we had a great panel discussion with the experts in the field. So scientific journey of the development of this quadrivalent HPV vaccine will also be now presented during the event. So announcement of India's first indigenously developed vaccine marks an important day for the entire scientific community in the country. So once again, I welcome each one of you for joining us for today's event. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alka Sharma, for the welcoming remarks and setting the stage for today's event and for this very, very important and relevant conversation. I would now like to invite Dr. Rajesh S. Gokhale, Secretary, Department of Biotechnology and Chairperson, BIRAC, for his opening remarks. Thank you.
Namaskar and good morning to all of you. Honorable Minister of Science and Technology for State with independent charge, Dr. Jitendra Singh ji, my secretary colleague, Dr. Khalai Selvi, Shri Adar Poonawala ji, Dr. Alka Sharma, Dr. Shishendu Mukherjee, my colleagues from Department of Biotechnology and BIRAC and various DBT institutions, the panelists, honored guests, and from companies and clinicians who have participated and excitedly do this. It's a wonderful occasion to celebrate the success of scientific journey that we have gone through over the years of time, actually. I think when many of this, India has started this ambition of having its own vaccine programs, it's always important that, you know, one has to begin by setting up systems and various mechanisms that are important for doing this incredible journey, actually. And that's why, you know, if you look at when this HPV vaccine was initiated, we really did not have this infrastructure of clinical trial sites, immunoassay lab, bioassay labs, and many of these activities that are very, very incredibly important for really getting the vaccine through. And this meeting is really for announcing the scientific success of what teams across disciplines, across companies, across benevolent funders, across DBT officials who have integrated together, along with various stakeholders and all the members of committees who have evaluated over the years of time and put in their wonderful efforts, actually, which is what an outcome of what vaccine is. And I think we're very often in the shadow of vaccine journey, we forget the hard work that is done by each one of us, actually, who are doing part of this activity. And I think this is really the celebration of that event. And I think I'm really delighted that Honorable Minister actually has been promoting us and constantly saying, take the lead in saying that science and technology is going to deliver, has delivered fantastic things to the country. And I think I'm really grateful for you, for your ambitious plans and ideas and your promotion that you continue to do for science and technology and giving this wonderful opportunity. We must also say how critical the partnerships are, actually. I mean, see, Adarji, who is here, is a tremendous benefit to all of us. What Serum has done to the country, we all know, has given vaccines at an affordable cost. And it's not that the vaccine did not exist, actually, but the vaccine existing are not affordable for being a primary vaccination program in the country, actually. And what India is showing the way in which we will lead across the world of how vaccines at a cost that is actually of incredible value, wonderful science, great safety concerns, great safety evaluations, as well as efficacies that are of unmatchable quality is achieved, actually. And I think this is what is very, very important aspect that as we look into the future of it. Of course, we can feel proud of all this, and I think one of the things that has triggered many of these activities together, as panelists also said, was COVID, actually, where we've ourselves realized that we have more potential than what we have in fact delivered ourselves, actually. And I think that self-understanding of our own things also gives us, a tremendous amount of boost to be able to look at what one can do. Now, what is interesting in while doing these trials and all, there are 12 trial sites used across about more than 2,000 volunteers participated in this activity, actually. And this journey has taken across the entire span of the country. And this vaccine, to be very frank, has taken a certain amount of time. But if you really ask what is the science that you would actually come up with new vaccines with, because this vaccine is what is called recombinant VLP system, actually. And as we have seen in COVID, mRNA vaccines are doing well. The DNA vaccine that DBT funded so much, provided such a wonderful support, actually, and had wonderful studies done. So in fact, there are new models of development of vaccinology research also has developed over a period of time. And I'm pretty much sure if you start to think of, if we have to develop HPV vaccine again, I don't know whether we will follow the same science and same model. In fact, we would utilize more competitive technologies that are faster to come by and be able to carry out. So that's where the fun in science is. You should never say, this is enough. And the whole journey continues. And I think we keep breaking barriers and we continue to embark on challenges and journeys that will make human life much better, much comfortable, and easier to look at. And I think the whole interest is really to start believing in our own scientific disruptive technologies and ideologies that, as I said, Honorable Minister has been promoting us and actually prodding us to do better and faster way, which is actually make significant difference to human lives and careers. So thank you very much, all of you. And I again welcome all of you on behalf of Department of Biotechnology and BIRAC. And again, thank both these organizations for doing wonderful activities. I think one of the things that you would realize, just to end before, is the partnerships that is becoming incredibly important in many of these activities that you do. I mean, for Department of Biotechnology, even though, you need substantial amount of funds to do wonderful research as well, actually. And therefore, you partner with industry to do manufacturing part, you partner with other international funding agencies to be able to carry out activity. And it's this co-creation is what's going to make all the difference in the future of the country, actually. So I think let's all get together and come alive and, do best whatever we can. Thank you very much, all of you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh S. Gokhale. Before we proceed, may I please request everyone to put their phones on silent mode. We're recording this session and we're also live streaming, and we want to make sure that it reaches far and wide, so thank you so much for that. May I now please invite Dr. N. Kalai Selvi, Director General CSIR and Secretary DSIR, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, for her remarks.
Honorable Minister of State, Independent Charge, Minister of MOST and MOAS, Dr. Jitendra Singh, Chief Guest of today's historically important function, distinguished guests and delegates on the dais and off the dais, pleasant morning to every one of you. Friends, I am excited and more than delighted than even Rajesh Gokhale, because their happiness is doubled when my sister ministry or my sister department, the Department of Biotechnology, is coming up with the very great milestone activity of launching one great indigenously developed vaccine for the great beneficiaries of Indian women. Friends, I think all of you will agree with me when we just consider the diseases, maybe if it is a cardiology related thing, always it is said that male are more prompted to get that. Similarly, when it comes to cancer, I think female community is always getting affected in more number. I think this particular identification or this particular innovation, so this will help in a major way to Indian women, I believe. And I fully agree with Dr. Rajesh Gokhale. He was talking about how long this technology will persist. Friends, we all know that these days technologies are also short-lived. Every technology is getting its version 1, version 2, version 3, and I think this is their first stepping stone in their success. And I'm so great to know that maybe it has taken just 1 decade, because coming up with a great vaccine, they have taken 1 decade. We may think that it is 10 years, but it is only 1 decade. Today they are coming up with a success story, and they are not going to get stopped here. They are going to continue their research, and my hearty congratulations to Department of Biotechnology. And I should really appreciate the Government of India, and especially our Minister, with a kind of foresighted vision with which many activities are getting geared up. I would definitely say, without any kind of hesitation, this particular government and this particular ministry and this particular department, they have taken utmost care in coming up with this kind of indigenous solution. Because this is an era where we are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliance, sustainability, and so on and so forth. And this is one such great demonstrations that we can do, India can do, and we can come up with our own solution. Because whenever we ask for any great thing, people immediately ask about what is India's contribution. We can say that this is India's contribution, by means of which we can definitely say goodbye to cervical cancer. Once again, thanks for the opportunity. Initially, I thought that I'll be just sitting over there, but I think it is again a pleasant privilege to congratulate our own good friends here. And I deeply congratulate from the bottom of my heart the entire research team who have really demonstrated that together we can win. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. N. Kalai Selvi. I would now request Dr. Umesh Shaligram to please join us and take us through the journey of the development of this vaccine. Please welcome Dr. Umesh Shaligram.
Honorable Minister, Deputy Secretary, Dr. Rajesh Gokhale, and DGCSIR ma'am, as well as our leadership, Mr. Adar Poonawala, everybody knows. We always say Har Ghar Adar, actually. So that's, and then MD BIRAC, Advisor DBT, Dr. Alka Sharma, and Shirshendu, whom I know pretty well, actually. So I would like to thank all of you all for giving a chance to take all of you all quickly through a journey, which is probably 12 plus years journey. Very difficult to take it into 5 minutes, but I'll try to take you through that and give a bit of overview about this journey, how it all started and how we really created together, being together, we created and ignited an ecosystem which really is delivering this vaccine, and in future generation to come, it will do a much bigger and new work actually. So can you please take to the next slide? So I don't need to take all of you all through the challenges of cervical cancer, major challenges. There is a vaccine available, but it is more in a developed world, developing world, certainly need a vaccine. And that's a key thing. You can see in this map, developing world needs a huge amount of vaccine, and certainly India also needs a huge amount of vaccine. Next. It's a simple vaccine. It's, as Dr. Rajesh Gokhale told, it's a VLP technology in 2010-11. At that time, remaining more towards the classical technology was obviously a motto, which was proven technology. So VLP-based technology involves a formation of a protein, which then forms a particle, and this particle is the key particle against which antibodies really protects you from subsequent disease. Next. So to take you to a little lighter side of the discussion, it all started, I was in a pneumo meeting in Geneva, actually, with our pneumosil for CRM 197. And I remember, you know, I went for the last day for the post meeting for a walk in a Geneva lake, actually. And there was somebody who said, hey, Bollywood guys, actually. And then because of my ponytail hair, I just started looking, you know, you obviously human mind, you feel, oh, somebody's saying me something good. Actually, you look back, and there was a guy who said, oh, will you dance with me? Not knowing that by doing this dance, I lose all my euros in my pocket. So I was completely pickpocketed, actually, over there. And then I was left out with no money, what to do, actually. And then I decided to cancel my trip to go to RAN Biotech. And then, no, keep in that, RAN Biotech. So Albrecht Laufer, who was my great friend, he said to me, don't worry, and Bishek Janovic, at that time MD of RAN Biotech, don't worry, you land in our place, I'll pay you all the money, you stay, and that was a year of, I think, World Cup. We all won the World Cup, actually. You stay, enjoy World Cup, and we will discuss about HPV and try to see how quickly we can make a HPV clones for you. And that's how the journey started, actually. And then our team went for doing a small transfer of strain. Subsequently, I think the presentation is going below, so there's a RAN Biotech photo, there's a team of RAN Biotech photo over there. You will see that. Next slide. So the journey started in 2011 when we started a concept, then subsequently strain development. Then we actually did a process development. A huge amount of process was developed at Serum because RAN Biotech suddenly decided we don't want to get into any work further. We can only give you the strain because they wanted to do a US FDA for their hepatitis B. And that's how the whole story, then we really put a lot of efforts together to do this process development. And then we realized in order to do this work, we really need to generate a huge coordination complex in India. And that's how my first meeting happened with, I think, JCDC Joshi, Dr. Joshi. Then I met Dr. Nirja Batla. Then she connected us to Dr. Shankar. And then me and Peter Dull, Harish Iyer is over here. I think we went to meet, at that time, MD BIRAC, Dr. Renu Swarup, and she really liked the idea. And that time DBT secretary was, I think, Professor Vijay Raghavan. He was really enthusiastic about the whole thing, and we decided, okay, let's create a consortium. Let's come together and let's develop this. This is the need of the day. And this is how the whole story started, actually. Those days were big challenging days, actually, because a lot of clinical trials, conduct of clinical trials, permissions were kind of delayed, a lot of challenges were there. So we started working together, and this ecosystem got ignited completely. And then subsequently we did an entire pan-India clinical development of product, which you can see all the sites. And then we really generated a nice coordination complex. Next. I don't need to take you through this again. Actually, everybody knows how critical is cervical cancer. And we discussed it's not only about cervical cancer, it's a lot more beyond that. Next. So the key part, which everybody is talking, is igniting an ecosystem. And all the DBT secretaries have actually together helped us to really create this ecosystem very nicely. And we could ignite an ecosystem where BIRAC, then Gates Foundation, then also the WHO ARC, very important, Shankar and team, actually, they played a very important role in designing a clinical trial. Then we have we created Mayor Powell from MHRA. She really played a key role in WHO TRS. I remember very well actually. So that was something great. And then Syngene, we created an in-house bioanalytical understanding and a complete novel technology which would have otherwise caused us 2 years more delay for doing a bioanalytics. That was all brought down in weeks in India, here in India, along with the help of DBT. Weeks we did a complete bioanalytics of HPV. Otherwise, it takes at least 2 years to do a huge bioanalytics post-clinical trial. So after trial, you take a sera, you analyze. You send it to an abroad, which takes their own time. But we could do this, and a lot of support which came to us from NIH and NCI people, actually, and also DKFZ out of Germany. So this consortium went beyond India, got all the technologies in-house and really developed and moved the ecosystem to bring all these things. That time was not a COVID time. And Dr. Devsena was also part of the story when we used to go quite often to her to get all this technology from RGCB, and we really made this working very nicely. So this initiation, this coordination complex formation, this ecosystem drive was brought in by the Secretary DBT, and really then it has translated now into a scientific completion of, and after having a marketing authorization of, it is not launched, but it is having a marketing authorization and scientific completion of a huge development of a HPV vaccine, which is now available to everyone. So this is a short and quick journey. Next, yeah. So we are very proud and very happy, and every mind, whoever is over here, whoever has contributed to this journey, indirectly or directly, you all know the mitochondria, and everybody knows probably over here a cytoplasmic inheritance. It's a womanhood, it's a mother who really gives you a power, without which you cannot even speak one word. That's why we do the prayers of Shakti Daini. I think now in October, all these pujas of Devi will start. But it's reality in biochemistry. You see the mitochondria comes from woman actually. And this vaccine availability and reducing their pains due to cervical cancer, all those mind contributed in this journey. I would like to really thank, because they are really contributing to somebody who is a true power giver, which is womanhood, which is motherhood of everyone actually. So true power giver is she, and we all are contributing to it. So everybody should be thankful to the Lord. Everybody should be thankful to all the leadership over here who has really helped us to come out with this vaccine. Next. And nowadays I don't need to talk about our leadership and their contribution. Everybody knows about their contribution, how many lives they have saved, and how many lives saving journey they have continued to do actually. Here is a slide which gives about all our efforts, and with that probably I would stop and say thanks to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shaligram, for summing up that so beautifully. I'm delighted to introduce Mr. Adar Poonawala, CEO, Serum Institute of India, for his remarks.
Honorable Minister of State with independent charge, Jitendra Singh ji, Rajesh Gokhale ji of DBT, esteemed panelists, Alka ji of BIRAC, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I think I'll just take 2 minutes because I think everyone has said so many things and I don't want to keep repeating them. You know, ever since Serum Institute was founded in 1966 by my father and chairman, Dr. Cyrus Poonawala, we have always focused on the well-being and protection of the mother and child. And traditionally, we've made vaccines to protect children. We have now focused also our efforts on the well-being of women, and especially today, you know, as we talk about empowering women, enabling women in the workplace, you have to be healthy if you want to be able to work and be productive. So a healthy India is a productive India. And if we were to take a leaf out of the words from Sri Narendra Modi ji, Atmanirbhar Bharat is something very important. We have to be self-reliant in these times, and this is a celebration of the science and innovation and a testament to what we can achieve and do together. And it is very important for the government and private sector to work together, because we can't do it alone. And under the Honorable Minister's guidance and support and vision, we have been able to do this remarkable achievement, and I hope that there are many further collaborations that we can work together to develop vaccines and drugs in India. And I don't want to repeat the importance of what we've achieved over here. This, of course, is not a launch. We will launch the vaccine in a few months. This is to celebrate, what is possible in the field of science. And I thank you all once again, and congratulations to everyone here for your support and this momentous milestone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Poonawalla. In the last couple of years, we've realized that the world has become smaller than we thought it was. So while we may not be physically around each other, we can always connect over Zoom. So we have someone very special who's joined us today, virtually of course. We have celebrated actor Miss Manisha Koirala, well known of Indian cinema, who absolutely needs no introduction. Her versatile work has conquered the hearts of millions. Today she's here with us as a cancer warrior after a brave fight with ovarian cancer. Talking about her journey and experiences, she's even penned a book titled Healed. Please join me in welcoming Manisha Koirala.
Namaskar. I hope people can hear me. Yes. Okay. So first of all, I would really like to thanks to the whole community for inviting me on this monumental day for the launch of cervical cancer vaccines. Having gone through the cancer myself, I know the ordeal a cancer patient goes through, and so it's really a great day for women in India and worldwide. So I just want to start with, when I was diagnosed with this dreaded disease, the only thing that came in my loved one's head was death. We had no clue there was a life beyond cancer. And luckily, by the blessings of God, I followed through the treatments which is available. And I had, blessings and supports of my family and the loved ones. So through all the ordeals that we went through, somehow I have managed to pull out of it. And today I'm cancer-free, have been cancer-free for 10 years and leading a normal, healthy lifestyle. Now, having gone through cancer myself, I really have realized the value of health, which I didn't do before this experience. And so I really, whenever I get an opportunity, I talk about preventive lifestyle and how important this life is, how important this health is, how important, how to manage, all that. So to me, when I was finishing and I was hopeful that I was going to be okay, I had made a promise to myself that whenever I get an opportunity, I will just be speaking about that cancer is not a death sentence. There is a treatment available. And there is life beyond cancer. So today, knowing that there is a vaccine to prevent cancer happening, it's such a huge relief, and especially for women related cancers, So I really want to thank all of you, the science and technology and the government of India for making this effort, making this dream come true. And I really hope, that most of the people utilize this vaccine, utilize this opportunity. And, to prevent getting cancer and having a vaccine is huge. So saying yes to life, saying yes to, cancer preventive lifestyle and cancer preventive vaccine. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm deeply, deeply grateful for all of you, and especially the Science and Technology Department of Government of India for reaching this milestone. Thank you so much.
Would anyone, any of the panelists would like to ask Ms. Koirala anything? Thank you so much, Ms. Koirala, for joining us. We would have loved to have you here, but like I said, technology has made our lives easier. And thank you so much for taking out the time to be part of this event today. It gives me great pleasure to invite our chief guest, Honorable Minister of State, IC, Dr. Jitendra Singh, to announce the qHPV vaccine today. Thank you so much. Please welcome Dr. Jitendra Singh. Thank you so much, sir. And it would be really great if you could join us and share some remarks with us for today's event. Thank you.
Secretary, Department of Biotechnology, and an eminent biotechnologist of this country in his own right, Dr. Rajesh Gokhale, Director General CSIR, Dr. Kalai Selvi, for whom I think this is the first formal official ceremonial program, which is visible from the kind of excitement with which she took the mic. But I'm glad that she's there and happens to be the first ever woman Director General of CSIR in its history of 80 years. So I think when you celebrate an innovation and an invention which is closely related to women of India, this is another also an added occasion to celebrate her elevation to this position. Dr. Alka Sharma, Dr. Mukherjee, and of course, how can I forget Dr. Poonawala, because this essential collaboration has made this possibly happen. The members of the scientific fraternity, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset I owe to congratulate the biotechnology team, Rajesh and his team, for the manner in which they have come out with this launch with a very passionate pursuit. And for them it's a launch. As Poonawala said, it will happen after a few months, that will in the market. So the launch means different things to different people. For the scientific fraternity, of course, it's an occasion to celebrate. I must also acknowledge the presence of Manisha over here, because in spite of her not being able to be here, she kept her commitment to join us. Kiran was also looking forward to join us, Kiran Kher from Chandigarh, somehow couldn't make it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when I was listening to all of you, what was occurring to my mind is that as a practitioner of medicine over the last several decades, I belong to a generation which has been witness to the transition of different spectra of diseases in this country, and also different phases in the understanding and practice of both clinical medicine as well as the investigative medicine. And when we began at the time of independence, we were mostly abreast with communicable disease. And most of the morbidity and mortality that we talk of now in the context of malignancies, etc., the metabolic disorders, accounted for because of tuberculosis, cholera, gastroenteritis, because we didn't have antimicrobials. The first antibiotic called penicillin came somewhere towards the end of 1940s. It was hailed as the queen of drugs. And the first line of anti-tubercle drugs, streptomycin and others, came somewhere in the early 1950s, around 53 or so. And before that, you just had a sanitoria treatment. So either you survived or you succumbed. And there was the non-pharmacological support available. And gradually then, somewhere in the 1980s, we overcame that. We got into an era of non-communicable disease, which also includes the one that we are discussing this morning, whether it was the metabolic disorders, type 2 diabetes mellitus, cardiovascular disease, dyslipidemias, hypertension, malignancies. And somebody also in a lighter vein said that now we are adopting diseases of the civilization, was diseases which mainly affected the Western world, the most developed world, so possibly India was now developing. But on the serious note, we had actually conquered infections and got into this. And for example, when I joined the medical school, the dictum was, if you read syphilis, you read medicine. So syphilis was a notorious sexually transmitted disease, and it went on in the absence of a suitable antibiotic available. It went on for 20 years, and it could actually teach you entire medicine. It began from a chancre locally, then the secondary stage, it would affect the skin, tertiary, it would affect your nervous system, neurosyphilis, cardiovascular syphilis, and so therefore you had to actually go through the entire textbook. By the time I came out and became a postgraduate resident and actually began to teach after having become a teacher of medicine, syphilis was hardly taught in the classrooms. So that's what I'm saying, what I mean, what I say, the transition that has happened during our lifetime. And then the dictum was, if you read diabetes, you read medicine. Because it starts from very innocuous symptoms like a lot of urination, etc., and then goes on to capture or a heart, kidney, nerves, everything. And that dictum holds. The viruses and the microbes had been by and large been captured. Only twice the world came across some kind of a hiccup. First we had the HIV in 1980s, we got over it, and then now the more recent deadly virus in the form of corona. But what is lesser talked about, at least in the clinical circle, is that these subtle smoldering viruses were always there, which also includes the one against which you are producing this vaccine. But one reason why we didn't capture our attention was that this change of spectrum of disease in the Indian subcontinent is also an outcome of multifactorial aspects. It's a multifactorial outcome. Maybe there's a change of lifestyle happening, change of our diet patterns, the environmental factors, the stress factors, and most of all, which we often don't discuss, is the lengthening of the lifespan. At the time of independence, the average age of an Indian was hardly 50 or 55. Many of us superannuated without receiving a farewell party. Now you are 65, 70 and longer. So obviously, some of those diseases which had to affect you at the later decades of life didn't happen because you didn't live long enough. Like for example, the carcinoma of the prostate. It won't happen if you don't live beyond 50. So these are several other factors which have actually led us into this kind of a new era. And these smoldering viruses Of course, we are talking in the context of the cervical cancer, but actually it's not something new to the world of medicine. As much as about quarter of a century ago, we came across a hypothesis called inflammatory hypothesis in cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis, which took everybody back, because earlier you thought it was just atherosclerosis happening, but somebody was saying, no, it's inflammatory. And then you also started linking dental caries to heart attack. If you had a bad tooth, it could contribute to a heart attack. So it's not something new that we are discussing. It's been there. Hepatitis C leading on or predisposing to the cancers of liver. But what has happened is now, and why we are here discussing is, that COVID has awakened us to the virtues of preventive health care. So the discussion, ladies and gentlemen, what we are discussing was happening earlier also among the professionals. But it was not in public domain, it was not public concern, it was not part of the public awakening. So as the adage goes, every adversity is accompanied by a virtue. I think one of the good things that COVID has done to us is that it's raised huge amount of awareness about preventive health care, particularly in a society like India where preventive health care was never talked about. And there was again multiple factors for that, our socio-economic factors being the foremost, because when in a society which is hardly in a position to afford a reasonable therapeutic treatment, you can't expect them to go in for preventive medicine, because that's a luxury of the next stage. And in my practice, I had almost 95% of my patients have been diabetics. I know of so many of them who would make a calendar and skip the drug for 2 days in a week, so that they could feed their family. And some of my junior residents would, scold them and say, "Agar dawai nahi khani thi to dikhane kyun aaye?" And then I would call them separately, the boy, and I'd tell them, "You don't understand the sensitivity of a common Indian. His self-respect outweighs him. He can't confess why he did so." So thanks to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, schemes like Ayushman Bharat have put us in an enabling position to also think of indulging in the luxury of preventive medicine. So that is ladies and gentlemen, the difference which has happened in the last 7-8 years. We can now afford to also look for preventive health care. And as far as the Department of Biotechnology is concerned, I must compliment that they have been consistently in the lead, and Rajesh and his team, and they are in the collaborative mood. I agree with Mr. Poonawala that we can't go ahead without an integrated approach. In the Department of Biotechnology, they have a number of programs formalized, like the Indo-US vaccine program, National Biopharma Mission, Mission COVID Suraksha, which was launched at the behest of Prime Minister Modi. I'm saying so all this because unless I pat my back, who else would? So I had to pat the... Indeed, the launching. And of course, the world's first DNA live vaccine. And why this program happening today, as Rajesh was hinting at, but felt shy of saying it in too many words. In fact, it is true, and I have no hesitation to confess. I insisted that you must have a program like this, because they did all the trials for the DNA vaccine in that institute in Faridabad, but none in the country knows where is Faridabad, where the trial happened. So I told him, you have to start making noise from the beginning itself. They didn't make enough noise. Of course, when it goes into the market, those have market stakes cannot be grudged for making noise because they have to sell the project. So the scientific effort sometimes does not receive the kind of recognition or the scale of recognition. It's like what happens in the field to which Manisha Koirala belongs. Once a movie, the script. But the script writers, ladies and gentlemen, Rajesh and his team. Written, the lead stars would not have an opportunity to enact, and the movie would not be there. So we are actually celebrating the script which was not sufficiently celebrated in the past. Therefore, I said, because obviously when it comes into the market, those who manufacture it will be well entitled to highlight it for good reasons. And by then it will be too late to actually recall who had done this. And I'm glad, as Alka was informing you, that this Cervical has been approved by the Drug Controller of India. And I don't have to go into the details of the importance of this vaccine to this informed audience. We have almost 83% of the cervical cancers now have something to do with this virus. So when we come out with HPV virus, we would be, if not wholly, to a great extent contributing to the prevention of it. And what is important and needs to be highlighted far and wide, I think even through the media, is what Rajesh was hinting, is the first indigenously developed India's vaccine for HPV virus. It will be affordable also. It will also add to the esteem of a common Indian, also live up to Prime Minister Modi's call for Atmanirbhar Bharat. And just to add to that before I conclude, we are already very cautiously working on the preventive healthcare, particularly in the cancer sector. And since I am related to 7-8 ministries of science, one of us, that is the Department of Atomic Energy, to which is affiliated the Tata Memorial Center, we have of late started a process of opening those sub-centers in different parts of the country. The first of its kind was opened about 4 years back in Guwahati, which is known as the Barua Cancer Hospital. The Tata faculty visits that, and I'm glad that in the last 2 years we've also started postdoctoral courses, DM Onco Medicine and MCH Onco Surgery, and maybe that is the first institute in that part of the country which has DM and MCH. And it is not with the Health Ministry, it's with the Department of Atomic Energy. Similarly, on the same pattern, we have set up an institute in Bihar, one in Uttarakhand, one in Varanasi, and very recently, if you catch up with the news regularly, last week you must have seen Prime Minister Modi inaugurating an institute which is of the state-of-the-art anti-cancer institute in Mohali near Chandigarh in Punjab. And I think the issue is such big that regardless of whichever ministry or department we belong to, COVID has at last taught us that we have to be together in fighting it out. And therefore, when I was in Northeast, though I was not mandated to talk about health, but I realized that there was a very huge prevalence of head and neck cancers. So I got in touch with Adyar Cancer Institute in Chennai because the head there, Dr. Hemant Raj, happens to be my contemporary from the Stanley days. So we got into an arrangement. Every 6 months, we would send one surgeon and one physician from each of the 8 states for a 6-month training. So that the aim was to have at least one cancer expert in each of the district hospitals. So what I'm trying to say is that we have to, all of us have to keep thinking and trying to innovate ways and means of contributing to this movement that has been undertaken under Prime Minister Modi. And to conclude, what is the take-home message? Like good researchers, you write an abstract and you write the conclusion. Because most of the readers will read only these 2 paragraphs. So I have been in this business for almost 3-4 decades. So the take-away message is threefold. A, awareness about preventive health care. And as Manisha rightly said, that the first thought was death, is no longer so. Many of the cancers, not most of them, are curable if detected in time. And similarly also most of the metabolic diseases. Now type 2 diabetes mellitus is a very deadly disease, but Jocelyn once wrote, one who knows diabetes the most lives the longest. Because he knows how to keep the target levels in mind. And one of my teachers used to say that his observation is that once one is detected as having diabetes or cancer, he tends to live longer. Because he takes care of the other parameters also, because death is a multifactorial outcome. So if you attend to one disease, you may be suffering from another which is unnoticed. But if you get an alert alarm, then you will take care of everything. So that is the kind of awareness about regular monitoring of the health parameters and preventive intervention. And for that, you can't leave everything to the government. You can't also leave everything to Melinda Foundation. You can't leave everything only to the Serum Institute. It is the responsibility of each and every citizen. As once Mark Twain said in the context of economics too serious a subject to be left to economists. So if you leave it to a professor of economics, he'll make a mess out of this. So I think this is something, wherever we sit, wherever we get together, we need to tell each other that you don't have to be apprehensive. And now, thanks to Prime Minister Modi, we also have the monetary support to access that, which was not there earlier. The second message is for the medical researchers. We need to have very credible surveys and data, particularly in a region like India, which is a heterogeneous country, which is known as subcontinent, quite unlike the homogeneous societies of European countries. Even in the area of cancer, you have different epidemiological picture in different areas. Like I said, in Northeast, you have a greater prevalence of head and neck cancer. And as far as cervical, I saw in southern India having relatively higher prevalence of this. So we need to so because we can then devise our health policies, health planning, health management, and also health research accordingly, depending upon which section of population in this Indian peninsula is prone to what kind of disorder. That also is equally applicable to other diseases. For example, type 2 diabetes mellitus till as late as late 1980s was known to be a disease of South India. We had the first ever department in Madras Medical College in Chennai. We never had it even at AIIMS of diabetology. So that is something which we, even our researchers sometimes are not actually very consciously taking care of. The epidemiological part of it. And third, of course, to supplement what was being said, the integrated approach. We cannot, and that's no longer an option now. If you have to arrive at successful outcomes, you have to come together. The demarcation between private public is no longer existing. It's not even public-private. It is research, academia, and industry. And make industry equal stakeholders. Not that they take away your research after you've done this. Make them stakeholder right from the beginning. Let them invest in your research. I think that will be the next level we have to think, so that we all become equal partners and we share the credit of it. And the importance of this particular vaccine also is that, as Prime Minister often keeps saying, that we are into the Amrit Kal, and crucial next 25 years ahead. So I think preventive care in regard of the younger sections of Indian population, with a country with more than 70% below the age of 40 years population. The challenge is malignancies at the younger age. Type 2 diabetes mellitus at the young age. Earlier on, if you said somebody has been detected, the immediate picture would be somebody in late 40s or 50s. Now you have in the third decade. Because if you have to go through this Amrit Kal and contribute to these 25 years, it is these young folks whose energy, whose capacity, whose potential is going to help in the making of that new India. So how far and how can we allow that to be squandered at the altar of all these diseases? So when we talk of preventing cervical cancer or all other such threatening disorders, we are not only doing service to the victim per se or the victim's family or to the society, we are actually doing it because we owe it to the nation. We owe it to the India of 2047. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, sir, for those insightful words. May I now request Dr. Rajesh Gokhale to felicitate Honorable Minister, sir. Thank you so much. May I now request Dr. Alka Sharma to felicitate Dr. N. Kalaya Selvi. May I now request Dr. Shishendu Mukherjee to felicitate Mr. Adar Poonawala. Thank you so much. Mr. Adar Poonawala would also like to felicitate the dignitaries. Dr. Jitendra Singh, Minister of State. Dr. N. Kalaya Selvi. Dr. Rajesh S. Gokhale. Dr. Alka Sharma. And Dr. Shishendu Mukherjee. Before we move to the vote of thanks, may I please request all the panelists from the first session to join us for a photograph with the Honorable Minister. Please welcome Dr. Neerja Bhatla, Dr. Umesh Shaligram, Dr. Guru Prasad R. Medigeshi, and Dr. Devasena Anantharaman. Thank you so much. This has been a very inspirational session. Before we wrap this up, may I please request Dr. Shishendu Mukherjee to come up and deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, Dr. Mukherjee.
Respected Honorable Minister, sir, respected Secretary DBT, sir, respected Madam DG CSIR, ma'am, Senior Advisor DBT and Managing Director BIRAC, CEO of Serum Institute Adar Poonawala ji, Senior Leadership of DBT and BIRAC, invited guests, members from the press, my colleagues from DBT and BIRAC. It gives me an immense pleasure and honor to propose the vote of thanks to our Honorable Minister, sir, for his presence today, for the announcement of scientific completion of India's first indigenously developed quadrivalent human papillomavirus vaccine, sir. Your leadership, your guidance has enabled us to complete the scientific validation of the vaccine as described. It is the first indigenously developed qHPV vaccine, true to our vision and mission of our Honorable Prime Minister, sir, of Jai Anusandhan and Atmanirbhar Bharat. And that is also in the era of Amrit Kal. It is a true gift and true honor for all the script writers, as our Honorable Minister described. Your guidance, support, and motivation really encourages us to move forward. Thanks to our respected Secretary, sir, for continuous hand-holding, guidance, and push for crystallizing these initiatives fast. Sir, your support is always driving us to newer heights every day. We thank the presence of DG CSIR Madam for her inspirational words and the zeal which she encouraged the scientific community to move forward. Dr. Alka Ma'am, whom we are working with us on an absolutely real-time basis. I think hundreds of times she is already involved with the team, guiding us and taking the initiative forward. I thank Manisha ji, our celebrity, for joining us despite of our ill health and giving her inspirational words to all of us to, to how cancer survivors can be taken up. And as told by us, it is not at that warrant anymore. And innovations such like this will come out and support us. Thanks to the Serum team led by Adar Poonawala ji, I should mention two names here, Umesh and Hit. I think they were, the last 6-7 years when we have been working, I have been involved in it. I think it has been almost every weekly calls, as mentioned by Alka ma'am, almost 30 plus scientific advisory group meetings, site visits, trainings happening regularly, and that's how the script was written, and we could celebrate the successful scientific completion. Thanks to the entire Serum team. Thanks to all the clinical trial sites. I think they should get a clap. Thanks to all the 12 clinical trial sites, Dr. Bartla is sitting here, I think which have been relentlessly working, the DSMBs, there were a lot of committees looking at these. I think they all need very strong thank. I will be failing in my duties if I don't thank the then leadership of DBT, late Professor M.K. Bhan, who encouraged us to build this collaborative approach to, and then Professor Vijay Raghavan, Dr. Sarup, and now the dynamic leadership of Dr. Rajesh Gokhale. I think it has been really a very, very strong push from the highest level to take this innovation to fruitful conclusion, which we are celebrating today. I thank all the panelists today for very exciting discussions which we have. And this was a discussion which literally educated all of us in the audience. Thanks is due to all the scientific advisory group members. The first, Professor Mahan Chair used to chair, late Professor Bhan, then Dr. Arora. I think all the scientific advisory group members coordinated it very well and gave really good inputs to that. WHO IARC, I think Partha Basu from WHO IARC has been, I think he have never missed a meeting, and he was literally guiding us so that once the vaccine is formally launched, pre-qualification issues are literally addressed well. My colleagues in the Grand Challenges, BMGF team, Hari Menon, Hari Shayer, he's sitting here, Hari Shayer, Peter Dull in Seattle, Janet White, I think they all were literally in pushing the innovation and giving all scientific, bringing in all relative expertise to take the science to the next level. I thank today's event would not have been possible without the constant support of my colleagues in the Grand Challenges team, Madhvi and the entire team here. And also from the foundation, I should name two persons, Doctors Pooja and Dr. Archana. Teamworks team led by Vasundhara and Mihal have been really supporting us. Finally, I thank my colleagues and DBT in BIRAC who have been literally source of encouragement for all of us to make this program happen today. Thank you very much for your attendance today, and I give you. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mukherjee. And thank you all for joining us today. I would welcome you all to join us for lunch. Thank you so much, and have a great day.